Welcome to Bismarck Insights with Mayor Mike Schmitz, a transparent and engaging conversational dive into meaningful topics impacting local government in Bismarck, North Dakota. Bismarck Insights is dedicated to removing barriers between the city of Bismarck and the citizens we serve every day.
Welcome to Bismarck Insights. I'm Bismarck Mayor Mike Schmitz, and today we're going to focus on 2025 construction projects in the city of Bismarck. And with me I have City Engineer Gabe Schell. Gabe, thank you for coming back. We've had a lot of stuff going on in the last few years, and maybe we should just give a little wrap on what happened in 2024, and then we'll dive into what we've got going this summer, which has already started because we're already into June-ish. But let's talk about some of the things we accomplished in 24 and what we got looking forward here a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, so in 2024, obviously a very busy construction season, both from our perspective as well as some of the other agencies that do work in our community. Kind of our highlight projects would have been our South Washington Street reconstruction project from Burley Avenue north to the South Bismarck drainage ditch. That project was funded primarily by half-cent sales tax for the arterial road construction and reconstruction, converting that two-lane roadway into a multi-lane facility with then also the ability to put roundabouts at the intersection of Burley Avenue and South Washington Street, as well as a signal at along the corridor as well.
And that actually extended a little bit into Burley Avenue, more east than west, but that was a big project. I drove it a lot.
Yeah, another component of that was widening the two-lane roadway that was Burley Avenue with ditches and put a three-lane roadway, still rural sense and still a roadway with ditches to convey stormwater. But that was another component of that, just to kind of put a final touch on that area of town here for the next foreseeable future.
And did the city itself have any other major projects in 24, or because people always talk about construction and what's going on, and there are a lot of things that we really didn't control?
Sure, there's always projects happening, and really what could be a minor project in our eyes could be a major project for that person who's being delayed for that week of time in front of their house, or that months of time in front of on that corridor that they usually drive. On any given year, we'll do about $3 million worth of water main replacements, and that's usually something that really touches everywhere in the older parts of town, so the area south of Divide, north of Main Avenue are primarily those areas that we go in and replace those water mains. So because that's in the middle of town, it might not affect you where you live, but it might affect you on your drive as you're making your way across our community.
Yep. And then, of course, we know North Dakota DOT's got a big project that started last year.
Yep, so DOT is still in the second year of their multi-year construction project of the Exit 161 interchange replacement at Bismarck Expressway or Centennial Road, depending on which side of the interstate you're on. That's about a $50 million project that the DOT is running and is leading. We have a coordination role to make sure that our fire trucks can get through, make sure our water mains and sewer mains still work, make sure our traffic signals work on either side of these interconnected corridors. But by and large, the DOT is handling that one, and then they'll bring us in when there's city-specific questions they may have.
Sure. So now moving forward, and we're already, like I said, we're already into construction season for 2025, but what do we got going on? And I know of stuff, but citizens probably don't.
Sure, there's a whole smattering of things. We'll do about $10 million a year of maintenance projects is what we have for our asphalt and concrete roadways. A project that many in the community are probably seeing right now is on South 3rd Street, where we're doing a concrete pavement repair on South 3rd Street between Bismarck Expressway and Main Avenue. So it's a corridor that a lot of people drive. Thankfully, it's 5 lanes, so we can use up a couple of those while the contractor makes repairs and still move a decent amount of traffic safely through the corridor. But we'll see delays because that's a corridor that might see traffic obviously impacts because of the construction activities that are occurring. Thankfully, we have other roads in the area that some of that traffic can get moved out to. We'll also do a fair amount of asphalt road replacements. In those sorts of projects, we'll replace the wearing course at the top couple of inches of asphalt if that's the right solution. But if that asphalt's already to the end of its useful life, we'll blend the entire asphalt and subgrade base into a new cement stabilized subgrade, and then put a new surface and wearing course on top of that. So it finds ourselves with a good solution that leaves the curb intact, and really we can get in and out of there in about a couple weeks' time, or I should say our contractor can get in and out of there in a couple weeks' time and move on to the next spot.
And so how's that South 3rd Street project funded?
So South 3rd Street would be funded through 2 parts. The primary part would be through special assessments that we would bring in the adjacent properties along that corridor. For that project, as well as any of the other maintenance type projects that we have in our community. There's also a city contribution that is presented in any of these maintenance projects. We'll fund generally about 25% through sales tax on maintenance activities such as a concrete pavement repair project, and on the heavier, more expensive, intensive reconstruction projects, we will contribute 70% of that cost so that it lowers the special assessment cost to those adjacent landowners, all funded through the first penny of sales tax.
Okay. And besides 3rd Street, what else do we have going on?
Our big one that we have this summer is our East Century Avenue reconstruction project that starts at about Centennial Road and goes out to the east. So it might be a corridor that people don't use unless they're in that area, but it's definitely in our growth area in our community. Northeast Bismarck is where we'll anticipate a lot of our future growth. So we felt real comfortable with the investment of increased infrastructure in that location, taking that 2-lane ditch section roadway, similar to what we've seen on some of these other corridors that we've converted into a multi-lane urban facility. So when this project's done on East Century Avenue, you'll find it very similar to the other segments of Century from about Valley Forge to Centennial Road, where it's a flush 5-lane roadway with a trail on one side, sidewalk on the other, corridor lighting, and some street trees.
And again, that is largely funded through sales tax, some state and federal funding as well, is that correct?
So on this project, it's funded primarily through the half-cent sales tax for arterial road construction and reconstruction. We did also receive a $2 million grant from the North Dakota Department of Transportation with state dollars through their flexible transportation program. And then the last aspect that we have is funded through our water utility. It's a good opportunity when we are digging up a corridor, putting a new road. If there's any water main repairs that we would need to make or any extensions of those water lines, it's kind of the opportune time to do that while we have the corridor under construction. So that's funded through both the water utility rates that our ratepayers pay, as well as a grant from the Department of Water Resources.
Okay. And speaking of water, I know there's some replacements occurring, as we talked already, in the core of town, I'll call it, or the older part of town. Because I've driven by it, and it's the Custer Park area. There's water being replaced there. Is there other utilities also being replaced at the same time?
So the project you're referring to is our cast iron water main replacement project, and that's a project that will do about $3 million worth every year, generally speaking, which gets us about 2 miles worth of water main, which is interesting to think of. 2 miles seems like a really long stretch, but when you break it down by blocks, it might just be a couple of blocks worth or a neighborhood worth to kind of get up to that 10,000 feet of water main. So this is areas where we have smaller diameter, older cast iron water mains, and we replace that through a technique that pulls in and bursts the existing pipe and kind of bursts it out of the way, and then it pulls in a brand new pipe behind it, and then all the excavation that we have to do is at the 2 bore pits to receive and inject the trenching device, as well as then reconnect any of our utility service connections. So at every house or every business that needs service, we'd have to dig a hole in that location to disconnect them, if you will, from the old line and reconnect them to now the new line that's in place.
But we're not necessarily tearing up the entire street to accomplish this, which saves some money.
Yep, we found that this is a more cost-efficient way to replace the water main, to really just have a contractor that's specialized in that activity, get in there, do that work, and get out of there. Subsequently, maybe the year or the following year after that is probably the time that we would look to replace the pavement structure and maybe do a mill and overlay or a full reconstruct of the roadway if that's what's desired. So really, we'll work hand in hand with our utility, Public Works utility operations folks in city here to make sure that whatever we're planning for the roads makes sense for what they're planning for the water main, and if we have to accelerate or decelerate maybe the timing of one of those projects, we do that in tandem then.
Okay. So do we have any other major projects that are planned for the rest of the summer of 2025 into the fall that we haven't talked about at the moment?
I'd say any of the projects that we have, they might be under contract right now, but some of these in particular, let's say our street maintenance project might have 10 units, so it might be 10 areas in town that will be impacted by this. And so if you're in the south part of town, that's where our contractor is working on Wachter Avenue. That's where they started their work, and they really didn't do any of the work on the north side of town. So we'll likely see as the summer progresses, the work on the south side of town finish up, get buttoned up, and then the contractor move out to some of those other units. So if you see construction in front of your home now, hopefully we'll be out of there and then move on to somewhere else, and we'll push that impact and that activity to another place in our community.
Okay. And looking to the future, we have a couple of things that are out there. Obviously, we always have, the arterial road type road work coming up, and we have a plan or a project that's scheduled to start next year probably, or shortly thereafter, and that's
Sure.
Tyler Parkway.
Yep, so our next project that would be funded through that half-cent sales tax program for arterial and for arterial reconstruction and construction would be our Tyler Parkway extension project. That would take Tyler Parkway from its existing dead end at Valley Drive and connect it across the Tyler Coulee to Cogburn Road over in Elk Ridge area. So it's about a 4,000 or foot so connection of these two dead end segments of Tyler Parkway that would allow for increased connectivity for the community, increased or improved response time for our emergency services, and with that some additional Parks and Rec related facilities, trails being constructed as well.
Okay. And that is huge, because I think it will save us or delay the timeline for having to probably put a fire station in a quadrant and increase the traffic flow and hopefully not disrupt the neighborhood too much.
Yep, so anytime that the fire looks to respond, they're driving on the roads that we have and the routes that are available to them. So the location of their fire station on Tyler Parkway currently, they can get more, I guess, depth into the community on that same response time by having a more direct route to get to those locations. So instead of going through a bunch of neighborhoods and taking 2 miles to get to the location, this would be a more direct route for them to take maybe 1 mile to get to that same location.
Okay. And talking about the half-cent sales tax, I mean, we're probably going to have to look at what needs to happen in the future as that goes, but do we have other projects that we can maybe still fund, or are we kind of getting to the end of that funding stream?
Yep, so the half-cent sales tax that was passed in 2018 had a 10-year sunset on it. So we would expect the last revenue, if left untouched, in 2029. So by our estimations, we would anticipate we'd still have about $13 million of that program that would be funded, but without a project identified for it. So we'll still have a commission decision of what to do with that remaining balance at this point in time, or if there's an extension or some other discussion on what to do with that program. But ultimately, we've invested so far about $67 million by the end of 2025 in these 6 to 7 miles worth of arterial road projects. So by and large, it's been a very successful program for our community.
And we've been able to get some matching dollars to enhance those improvements from various other agencies, correct?
Yep, so when we've taken our local dollars, we've pledged those with some of the federal and state dollars that we've been able to secure. It's something to the tune of about $18 million that we've secured in that realm too. So it's taken our local dollars and stretched them out even further without the need to use a special assessment on any of the adjacent properties for that improvement.
And I think it's important for people to understand that, because that is actually a way for us to stretch those federal dollars some, or state dollars, as the case may be. We have other projects that at least we've talked about at the commission table, and certainly as a community we know are out there, and I'll bring it up, and it may not be necessarily a topic we were ready for, but I'm going to bring it up. It's flood control and protection. Where are we at with what we're trying to do in South Bismarck, or just general flood protection for Bismarck?
Sure. So what happened in 2024 is the city adopted a new floodplain that the FEMA and our state required us to do. So in the end, we took a lot of what was in South Bismarck that was protected by a gate structure on South Washington's drainage ditch, but because FEMA didn't recognize that as effective flood and certified flood protection, they really project the floodplain back into the heart of Bismarck. So we've developed projects and scenarios and alternatives that would be able to get FEMA certified flood protection for South Bismarck and have received federal dollars from FEMA to enact those improvements. We're currently working on the design of what that would look like. We've approached the state in the previous biennium, the state legislature, and did receive dollars towards the construction of these improvements, and are working towards finalizing that design so that we can then go back and either bid the project or go back to the state and ask for additional resources before we commit fully to that activity.
And part of that discussion at the state level was how does this really fit, and how are we proving out to be flood protection, and so a lot of work on your team's staff to actually probably prove to the state that this is flood protection. Yeah,
there's a lot of government oversight to access those dollars. You need to prove to those agencies that this is for the intended purpose. So whether it's the FEMA dollars or it's the state dollars, each of those will have requirements that we'll have to work through to prove that this is providing effective FEMA certified flood protection. And if so, we'd be able to then effectively change that map at the conclusion of the project to remove much of the property that was added in 2024 and pull that out of the floodplain. But that would be a multiple years from now sort of discussion, because the improvements would have to not only be bid and designed, but actually constructed and surveyed before we could certify to FEMA that our citizens are now protected from that level of flood protection.
And the goal here is somewhere 1,000 structures or more probably impacted, and that's why it's so important.
Yep, we brought in 1,000 structures into that floodplain. I shouldn't say we, the floodplain brought those in. It wasn't necessarily the city of Bismarck driven. But yeah, 1,000 structures approximately, many of those manufactured home park locations. We have some critical infrastructure facilities, some substations, education facilities, and medical facilities. So there's a lot of important property within that area that would be inundated in accordance to FEMA's floodplain map. So that's one of the reasons that we're trying real hard to see what we can do to resolve that.
Right. And so, skip back to roads, because that's one of your primary focuses. What road projects do you see that we need to be looking forward to, be prepared for, I guess, beyond 2026, that you've kind of already identified might be projects to look at?
Sure. So past 2026, I mean, we'll continue to invest in our roadways. That's always our number one priority, is taking care of our existing network, and to do that in a manner that keeps our roadway condition at the level that our citizens are accustomed to requires a significant investment. So we'll continue to use our long-range planning tools that we have. Every 5 years or so, we will have an entire inventory of our community and its pavement condition inventoried, and then we'll use that to help inform what our capital improvement plan should look like, so we can properly identify the projects and then budget for them accordingly. So really, at any given time, we would expect to touch that roadway, every roadway, with some sort of improvement. Hopefully it's a lower cost preventative maintenance, crack sealing, crack mitigation, surface coat sort of treatment, but other times it's a more expensive reconstruct sort of facility. But like I said, our main goal is always to repair the facilities that we have. It does provide some fun opportunities to take into account some of the other maybe planning documents that we have out there that we've produced or that have been produced on our behalf, to incorporate other improvements, whether it's a safety improvement, a roundabout, a new sidewalk here or there, that when we're already exploding that intersection and obliterating the entirety of it, it really doesn't matter the cost to put it back. It's going to cost the same to put it back, so we could put it back with maybe a curb line that's a little bit wider if that's the goal, or maybe a curb line that's a little bit narrower if that's the goal. But we have a lot of sunk costs, and we can kind of recreate the city in the image that we want it to be.
Sure. On the sunsetting sales tax, there were some additional roadways that were identified that have not been touched yet. Is that correct?
Correct. Some of the corridors that we haven't really improved or touched that we would be eligible for the half-cent sales tax would be 57th Avenue between Washington Street and State Street. Really the State Street corridor from Calgary Avenue north to 1804, the State Highway 1804, 71st Avenue is an eligible corridor, and the Main Avenue corridor from I think 26th Street, or it might be from Expressway to the east to 66. They're all eligible corridors that we could put investments on, and that's really the kind of the analysis that we'll be performing to understand, of those corridors, where's the most pressing need and where do we invest those dollars.
Okay. And that's obviously one of the ways we fund it. What are other ways that we fund some of our roadway network improvements, repairs, maintenance, and so on?
Sure. When we get to the project level, I mean, the biggest funding sources that we use are 1 penny of sales tax that we have for infrastructure, and the City Commission so far has used those dollars to push that and subsidize the special assessments that would be used for those maintenance activities. So accompanying the special assessments is a hefty dose of sales tax. We also look to our federal partners when the state DOT has grant opportunities, or even the allotment that might be given to the Bismarck-Mandan area. We try to prioritize those maintenance activities and maintenance dollars first, so that we have taking care of our network as the number one priority before we consider expanding to that network. So the combination of special assessments, sales tax, and then either federal or state aid is where we primarily make up our funding revenue sources.
So as we look to the future, challenges, opportunities for our city streets.
I think challenges, opportunities are always the fact that it freezes and thaws here. So it pains me every single time we do a perfectly great project and then we have a winter. And it's not just the plow damage, it's the fact that ground is moving, it's freezing, it's thawing. Anytime we have subsequent freezing and thawing events, it just ages that roadway to a higher degree than what you might find in Arizona or even in Alaska. So anywhere that you just have a lot of those freeze-thaw cycles, you'll see a lot of road degradation. So unfortunately, anytime we do a project, we know we have to be back there again. So it's our goal to try to do this as efficiently as we can and make sure we're making the correct preventative maintenance activity at the right time of that pavement's life, so that we aren't ripping up perfectly good infrastructure, but we're also not waiting for that infrastructure to go bad and have to have a unnecessarily high improvement strategy. So that's always the challenge, is trying to find the right tool at the right time for that particular facility, and regardless of roads or water mains or sewers, whatever that facility is, that's always our goal.
So from your perspective as a city engineer, what things do we need to be looking for? What things should the city be trying to figure out the best way to effectively, efficiently, and cost benefit wise accomplish, whether it's for your own tools or measuring the roads, whatever it is?
Sure. I think the sustainable funding sources are always an important thing. If we knew every year that we would be getting a set amount of federal dollars to use, we would be able to better plan how to use those dollars, but it is subject to change. So those dollars aren't always assured. Sometimes the State Department of Transportation will come in and do a project in our community, and that's great, and we love it when they do that, but we don't have a guarantee that that will happen. So there's always that risk, that outstanding risk that's out there of we think that the feds will come in and repair these things, but ultimately they are our roads. We have to maintain them. If there's no federal money, that's our obligation. So for us to find ways to have a sustainable program, whether it's through a street utility fee or some other funding mechanism that would allow us to have a revenue source that's identified for those types of improvements that have some uncertainty in their funding, that is obviously a very interesting topic to have with the community, and I would have a lot of interest in that.
And that would, if there is sustainable funding, I think it does help from a cost standpoint because it's easier to plan and maybe even bid when it's not urgent.
Yeah, there's definitely a cost savings component with that. We're able to plan the right tool at the right time. When we do use special assessments, there's costs to borrow, there's costs for the bonding that go into that process, and we pass those costs on to who's paying the special assessment. So some of those costs wouldn't have to happen, the carrying costs for that infrastructure project, if we weren't using special assessments. So there's benefits and there's obviously cons with any of those funding sources, but from special assessments, it's definitely one of the challenges.
So Gabe, how do citizens find out what's going on? What's the best way for them to know where street activity is happening that might cause them to have a delay in their commute?
Sure, we got a lot of different opportunities to discuss our activities with the public. We try to, when we know it's coming, when we know it's happening, we try to get advance notice out. So our street maintenance improvement districts, because they are funded through special assessments, we'll write every single landowner in that area a letter prior to the project even being bid or awarded, letting them know of this project and what to expect. We'll do the same things with our water main improvement projects. Because we will be setting them up for temporary water for a period of time. We do some extra engagement, letting them know we're doing this is what it'll look like, this is what to expect, this is who to contact, etc. For more of the general public, we'll use a couple of different methods, one being direct information on our website at bismarcknd.gov. Usually /streets gets you all of the headlines and news and all the information that we're promoting at the time. But we'll use our media partners to send out press releases that'll get picked up by the local media saying what that activity or that lane closure or that road closure might look like for the next little bit of time. And then lastly, I think our final component is just on the roadway. With the construction signing that we have, the sign that says road closed is obviously a very indicative message that road is closed in front of you and find another route. We try to put out digital message board signs before we get to that point, letting people know on that corridor that might commute that on a daily basis but maybe don't live in the area that come XYZ date that this road will be closed and you'll have to go a different way, or you'll have some lanes closed and expect a delay. So we try to get that information out before we do it so that the traveling public can make accommodations in their daily schedule.
And when they go to the website, the maps, I won't call it interactive, but there's a pretty good map that they can pull up and actually see, even if it's not going on yet, where that construction is going to be so they can start to plan ahead of time.
Yeah, we have two features that we would like to maintain and update on our website. The one is kind of all of our construction projects that we'll see in 2025. So it's by their construction type. So if it's a water main replacement, a street rehab, fixing a traffic signal, whatever the thing is, have that just geospatially referenced so the citizen can go in and figure out what is it that's being done in this area. That's more of a global, not up to the minute or even up to the second. That's everything that we plan on doing this summer or this construction season. Another tool we have on the same website just goes through our lane closures and our current road restrictions that we have. So if someone's just curious about where do we have current lane restrictions, we have a map on our website that says on 3rd Street we have a lane closure, on XYZ Street we might have a full road closure, and here's the detour route to get around this activity that's occurring somewhere in our community.
Gabe, is there anything else we should share with our citizens?
I would say the final thing would just be as you make your way into those construction zones to go safely through them. I know it might be a delay for you, but that's the work site, that's the job site for someone else, and we want to make sure everyone's safe. Our workers, our citizens, our community, anyone who's in these construction zones, we just want to make sure everyone's safe. And to do that, it's being alert and not being on your phone and paying attention to the signs and paying attention to your surroundings.
And I'm going to throw one last one in, and it's not engineering related, but I do ask citizens, please watch the speeds, traffic signs. There are pedestrians walking, there are cars that are trying to traverse through, and I've come upon a couple accidents the last couple of weeks that I'm like, oh my gosh, those are pretty high speed. So let's try to respect everybody else's property as well, please.
Yep, it's a great thing to do, is to travel safely everywhere you go.
Okay. Gabe, thank you for sharing a bit of an update on what's going on in our community from a road construction and water utility infrastructure rebuild.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching Bismarck Insights with Mayor Mike Schmitz. If you have specific topics or questions you'd like addressed in future episodes, email mschmitz@bismarcknd.gov or call the City of Bismarck at 701-355-1300. To learn more about the City of Bismarck, visit bismarcknd.gov or follow us on a variety of social media channels by searching BismarckND.gov. Bismarck Insights is a collaboration between Dakota Media Access and the City of Bismarck. You may find Bismarck Insights episodes on Government Access Channels 2 and 602, as well as on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV devices, on Radio Access 102.5 FM and on demand at freetv.org.